Welcome to the Massachusetts General Hospital Frontal Temporal Disorders Unit Community Forum Friday webinar series. My name is Katie Brandt. I'm the Director of Caregiver Support Services and Public Relations for the MGH FTD unit, and I'll be your host for today's session, Navigating the Holidays with a Loved One with Dementia, the Uninvited Guest. Now, of course, the uninvited guest is not your loved one, it's dementia. It's Alzheimer's disease, it's FTD, it's a related disorder that changes the way that your family celebrates this special time of year. I'm thrilled today to welcome an expert guest to our webinar series, Barbara Moskowitz. Barbara, welcome.
Thank you, Katie.
Barbara is the Associate Director of Education and Support for the Dementia Caregiver Support Program. Barbara, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about your program. We know that we also want to share resources with our community. I think that we wanted to start the program today by acknowledging that before we talk about how to celebrate the holidays safely with your loved one living with dementia, you may want to take a moment, go to the Alzheimer's Association website, the FTD unit website, or the Dementia Care Collaborative to learn a little bit more about the condition that your loved one's living with. Do you have any additional tips related to this, Barbara?
No, I think, Katie, those are the primary and most important websites.
They are. And folks can also go to our MGH FTD unit YouTube channel and look at any of the wonderful webinars by Dr. Brad Dickerson and our clinical team that talk more about these conditions.
Right.
But Barbara, I'd love to turn it over to you to tell us a little bit more. What is the Dementia Care Collaborative?
Okay, thank you, Katie. And it's an honor to be working with you here again. It is a program that is committed to improving the experience of patients and families with dementia of any type, much like all of the work you do, Katie, with the FTD unit. We are partners in this. And as part of the Dementia Care Collaborative, the Dementia Caregiver Support Program, of which I'm the Associate Director, has programs that are available to everyone watching and your relatives and friends. Most importantly, I'd like to let you know that we have caregiver support groups, which I am the facilitator of, as does Katie. We're offering more and more groups for people, which is so important. We have a program called Conversations with Caregivers, and they are monthly Zoom seminars. We've had Dr. Dickerson. We have many experts. We have wonderful seminars, which you're all invited to. We also have health and resiliency sessions, especially for caregivers. Those are sessions on gentle exercise, meditation, yoga, moments and experiences that, as busy as you are, we hope you can give yourself. They're all available to you. Finally, I teach a monthly class called Fundamental Skills for Living with Dementia, and those are the basic skills. I just want to bring your attention, the most important website for me is that one on the bottom, dementiacarecollaborative.org. That is our program website. I invite you to read more about us, but most importantly, I would be thrilled if you sign up and be on our distribution list, and you'll get memos for everything. Thank you, Katie. So we welcome all of you. Thanks.
Barbara, it's a fantastic program. And I just have to additionally shout out that all of your programs are free.
Absolutely.
Thanks to the generous philanthropy and support of others. And I can say that we advertise your programs in our support group and just think that there's a wonderful wealth of information and support available.
Yeah, for all of you who know Katie so well, we overlap tremendously in our vision, in our values, and in our goal to be available to you. So today is a great, great joy for me. Thank you, Katie.
And Barbara, you have a special event that you wanted folks to know is coming up.
Correct. Some of you may know of the international organization called Dementia Friendly, and it is now a movement that is dedicated to educating the public and the community about dementia. We have in each state, we have our own movement. So we have Dementia Friends of Massachusetts, and Katie and I are both a dementia friend. What is different about this is that you are all experts about dementia, of course, as caregivers who know people in your family with dementia. This is an opportunity. It's only 1 hour, no cost, Zoom. This is an opportunity for you to hear a presentation that will offer you 5 key messages about living with dementia and simple things a person can do to make a difference in your community. These are messages that we hope to promote and give to our community. I think we've all had experience perhaps of being in stores or standing in a cashier's line, and we know someone with dementia might be struggling, and we wish that the person behind the register or the supervisor understood that this is a person with illness. And so this is actually about a movement into the community, and it's a very light but important session. So feel free again to just email in our program on our website that you're interested. The sessions are November 22nd, 1 hour, no cost, and November 30th. So Katie, it's a worthwhile program, isn't it?
It's a tremendously worthwhile program. And it's especially helpful, I think, for folks who don't know much, haven't had experience yet. It's a great entry program. Yeah. And I really love it how on the flyer that you've displayed here, it notes the logistical information when and where, but then it says champion for the speakers, because that's what this is about, championing understanding and inclusivity.
Right. And the mission on both of our programs is not only to help our patients and caregivers, but also educate the community, which is a way of helping our patients and caregivers by making it a more friendly place to live. Thank you, Katie. Next slide will be perfect.
So this is really the center, the heart of our program today, family traditions with an update. These are the questions that we considered in creating today's content. And what we hope is that folks who are watching this session take a moment to think about how are the holidays going to be different this year. You'll see that we have some images throughout the program representing Christmas, but we want to acknowledge that these guidelines are for any religious holiday, end of the year, birthday celebration, whatever traditions that are important to your family, you can apply these core concepts, and they're meant to be inclusive. So really asking ourselves, how do we maintain the spirit of traditions? How do we incorporate travel? How can we plan for entertaining and welcoming visitors into our home? How can we assess safety no matter what we're doing? And most critically important, how do we involve our loved one who's living with dementia or cognitive impairment? So Barbara, could you help us think about where do we begin?
Thank you, Katie. And first I want to mention, and Katie will speak later about COVID and the impact it's had on all of us. But I want to start by bringing all of our attention to the fact that your holiday event, which hopefully will come soon, it may involve relatives and family who haven't seen your loved one in perhaps 2 years. And though your loved one's function and behavior and appearance is now normal to you because you've been with her for every day, for family who hasn't seen her in 2 years, it may be a surprise. It may be shocking and sad. So Katie and I want to be encouraging today that you are empowered to plan and to guide others. So to use as an example, an 82-year-old woman with early to moderate stage Alzheimer's disease. She lives with her daughter and her family. She has always adored cooking for holidays and greeting relatives. Changes since the last holiday celebration, which in fact was 2 years ago. Her physical health has changed. She's much more frail. It is 2 years, but also during the COVID lockdown, as for many, the senior center where she used to go for exercise was closed. The adult day program was closed. Walking with her family just through the local mall for exercise was closed. And as much as we all tried to have Zoom exercise programs on the computer, many people with dementia lost a lot of their strength. And there may be illnesses that have been added in the 2 years. Now, behavior, this wonderful 82-year-old woman who used to cook for days no longer cooks meals, and she now needs assistance with personal hygiene and dressing. One thing that is significant is whereas in the past, her daughter might have said, okay, Mom, time to get dressed for the company. This time, that language might be a little bit confusing because Mom hasn't gotten dressed for company or for an occasion in 2 years. So the daughter might go up with Mother to her bedroom and say, how about this dress or this dress, Mom? You look so beautiful in each. And again, because it's been a long time since she's dressed for the holidays, that's something to think about. One of the things that Katie and I talk a lot about with our families is that a person whose dementia has advanced over the last couple of years, and perhaps not so much advanced, but at their current state, they can be easily overstimulated if more than one person is speaking at a time. And as a consequence, they now may withdraw or become anxious. And that could be a very important change. We'll talk more about that. Next slide, please, Katie. And one of the ways that Katie and I want to help you think about it is, again, you are in charge. You are the expert on your loved one. You know what's best and what works and what doesn't work. So we suggest that you take a little time and think about strengths and challenges. For example, what's the best time of day for your loved one? Might it be after a good lunch, your relative takes a nap, and then right after awakening from a nap, she has 2 or 3 really fine hours. So that's the best time of day. As opposed to across from that, what's the toughest time of day? And for many people, for a long time, you've understood that it might be when it gets dark outside. And of course, and so we call that sundowning for some people. And of course, now with the time change, I don't know, Katie, about you, but I've gotten a lot of calls from families who say, my loved one is suddenly agitated at around 3:30. I don't know what's happening. So we have suggestions. Again, on the strength, what might be your relative's favorite activity? This 82-year-old woman, her favorite activity at Christmas used to be gathering all of the grandchildren at her feet and distributing piles of presents to all of them. And we all know that there's no finer joy than the giggling and unwrapping of a lot of presents of children, though that might now be a bit overstimulating. So what might change? You might suggest, because we don't want to deny your relative of that joy, that the 82-year-old woman sit on a couch, perhaps you next to her, and one grandchild comes up at a time, and you hand her one gift to give to that grandchild, who will unwrap it and enjoy it. Now, not to worry, the other gifts will be there later for the children, but this is a way Katie and I will be mentioning over and over that we want the joy to be present for all of you. And the key is often to simplify and clarify for your relatives. And now I'd like to talk about ability. This is a word that Katie often uses, and it's so perfect. Our 82-year-old woman who used to love to cook meals can no longer do that, but she can still participate in some of the activity and feel like she's a participant. For example, while her daughter is cooking the meal in the kitchen, she may join in the kitchen, sit at the table, and have some chores. For example, daughter might give mother a bowl of vegetables and add a dressing and ask mother to mix it up. And also, if there are 10 people coming, there are napkins to be folded. So what we think about, though she can no longer cook the meal, it will be a great pleasure for her to know that she's participating. Returning to some of the challenges, we talked about what might be a tough time of day, Katie. The other thing we'd like to bring to your awareness are alcoholic beverages. As we know, for most people with dementia, alcoholic beverages are a problem, be it their interaction with medication and its effect on many of their functions. So what we recommend, because we want your loved one to participate and feel like she is a part of the event, where there may be a family toast and there's special wine glasses or beer glasses, we suggest purchasing some of those wonderful non-alcoholic wines or beer, and having it in a special place. And when everyone is served, your loved one is served what looks like the very same thing as everyone else, and with no worry that there is alcohol that will harm her basic wellness. The other thing is monitoring intake. There's going to be wonderful food, wonderful hors d'oeuvres, wonderful things that we all love to put our hands in and pick at all day long. And if you know, again, you're the expert, if you know that too many sweets or something with nuts or raisins will have an effect on your relative, be it that they're diabetic or they have allergies, it's helpful if you engage some other relatives to join you in monitoring intake, so that, because you don't have to be there and vigilant with everything, but we don't want to risk your relative getting ill. Upsetting events, that can be any number of things, but mostly what comes to our mind when Katie and I were thinking about upsetting events, given that many people with dementia struggle with overstimulation. And that's, the very joy of a successful party is that there's so much noise you almost can't think, right? Someone's listening to a football game, someone else is having a political argument, there are jokes, there's all kinds of things, and that is joyful. However, as I think you all know, for the person with dementia, all of that which is essentially joyful can be very hard to manage. It is overstimulating, and it's hard to keep track of who's talking and where the noise is coming from. And in fact, the 82-year-old woman that I mentioned, this event did happen. She joyfully sat at the head of her family's meal. And when everyone was talking at the same time, laughing, giggling, yelling, fighting, this happy grandmother and parent got up from the table, went to her bedroom, and got in bed. And what was that? When the family evaluated, she wasn't ill. It's just that she couldn't tolerate what her brain could no longer process for her. Remember, she has a brain illness, and she just couldn't make meaning out of it. So that's something to be mindful of. And you might want to reflect, at home during the day, does your loved one get upset if the UPS driver comes by and rings the doorbell and drops a lot of packages. And when the doorbell rings, does the dog start barking? If you can think about what typically stimulates anger, paranoia, is someone coming in to steal from us, or anxiety, that is what will contribute to your creating a wonderful event. And in the same spirit, what helps? And I think what Katie and I have learned the most, what helps the most, and what helps all of us, in fact, the most, is your relative knowing she is adored, loved, welcomed, and it's a joy to see her. And so really what is most important, really most important, is the warmth and company of people coming and your gentle hugs. Katie, next slide, please.
Barbara, what a tremendous thing to focus on, right? That it's about the connections and that warmth and love, and that's what we want to share. Yeah. So how can you do it to promote success? You can plan ahead. When Barbara and I were talking about this, we thought about how you always plan ahead for the holidays and family and friend gatherings. But now we really need to encourage planning ahead in a different way. And what we want to talk about is planning ahead for your loved one living with dementia, and also planning ahead for you, because that could look different this year. So thinking about, what if you have always been the host? You're the one who opens your door wide. You make your house sparkle with festive decorations. You have all the food, and you welcome everyone to your home. What does that look like this year? If you've always cooked in the past, are you able to cook this year? Or do you need to ask for it to be a potluck event where people are helping you by bringing in things? Do you need to get it catered? Get those meatballs delivered. You don't have to make them from scratch. I always think about the times that I, labored over making stuffed mushrooms or a pie. Guess what? The store-bought ones were enjoyed just as much, and there was a lot less work involved. Who will stay by your loved one's side? We mentioned, Barbara mentioned in the previous slide about monitoring your loved one's intake of food. Oftentimes at parties, it can be very busy. People are moving around. Sometimes it's nice if you or someone else really says, I'm going to keep that consistent eye on mom, on our loved one, so that there's one person that really knows, mom had a glass of water. Now she's enjoying sparkling apple cider, and she had some decaf coffee. Otherwise, what if maybe there's not a consistent person? What if mom doesn't end up having anything to drink for many hours? She could become dehydrated. And sometimes even who will stay by your loved one's side, it's more than just monitoring food. It's really providing that safety net. Some of our loved ones with dementia, they really need different things to help them feel safe. So for one person, it may be, I can go anywhere. I can go to Auntie Judy's house. I can go to my grandchild's house. I can be at the mall. As long as my loved one, my caregiver, is right by my side and I can hold their hand, I'm happy anywhere. For another individual, the home, the environmental setting may be the safe place. And so when you're thinking about your planning for your loved one with dementia, you want to think about what is important to them to make them feel comfortable and safe. And this last bullet, if you've been the host, who is going to help you clean up? This is quite important. I love Barbara's chuckle, because that is as big of a part as any of hosting a party. And so to say to your loved ones, your friends and relatives, this year, we're not taking the china out. It is staying in the hutch. We're going to have disposable utensils and plates and napkins. And we're going to assign someone to take the garbage out at the end of the night because I can't bring that heavy bag out in the dark and leave mom alone in the house. It's okay to plan ahead that specifically and to ask your loved ones either before they arrive at your home or even when they arrive, what can you help with to make this event smooth for everyone? Now, what if you've always been the guest? What if you've driven 4 hours in the car every Christmas Eve to stay overnight somewhere? What if you've taken a plane and traveled? You really need to think about, is that going to work for us this year, given the changes that my loved one with dementia has experienced, and also considering COVID, which we'll talk more about. But if you decide that being the guest is something that you want to do, think about, just as Barbara talked about before, what's the best time of day for that arrival? And how can you manage expectations? I think that this is not only about our loved ones functioning, but COVID, and there's this interplay. So imagine that the woman that we profiled has a 4-year-old granddaughter who is not vaccinated for COVID and attends a busy preschool with many other unvaccinated kiddos. And the best time of day for mom is that early afternoon or late morning. You could organize a holiday outdoor visit, managing that expectation. We're happy to come and visit, but we can only stay for a short while. And it's best if we could visit outside. Mom would love to exchange presents on the porch. And maybe we could blow some bubbles and have some Christmas music on the iPhone. But it won't be quite the same as years past. So we want to think about, gifts for our loved one with dementia, the person living with the diagnosis. Really, maybe in the past, you always gave dad a new fishing lure or a new pocket knife. And maybe those are not appropriate gifts now. We need to think about our loved ones' abilities and challenges. And what can you give them that would be safe and helpful to them? I want to give a nod to the Duke Family Caregiver Support Program. I got many ideas from a presentation that they did, including, shopping at the Alzheimer's Association store, online store. And so you can go on their website, alz.org, and find ideas for gift giving for loved ones with dementia. And as the caregiver, do not be afraid to tell the people in your life, I don't need another sweater, but boy, I could use a gift certificate to get someone over here to mow my lawn. I would love a month of a laundry service or a restaurant gift card to someone that has curbside pickup or delivers to my door. So really, people, when they're giving a gift, they want to bring joy to your life. So communicate with them about what that would look like for you today. And Barbara, I think you have some tips about how you can guide people.
Thank you, Katie. We're aware that it's sometimes difficult to think of giving guidance and suggestions to friends and family. I've never done it. I might worry that they think I'm overbearing, but Katie and I want to encourage you that this is the time. Your life is different. You're a caregiver of someone with an illness. This is the time for you to take initiative because you are the expert and you want everyone to have a wonderful holiday. So some of the items you might want to consider, as we've already said, is acknowledging to relatives that your mother has changed, your loved one has changed in the last 2 years since we last celebrated the holidays. And some of the changes might be in physical ability. She possibly uses a cane or a walker now. There might be changes in her eyesight or hearing. And when we think of that compounded by her brain illness, which makes it more difficult to understand a lot of language, as well as to express ourselves. Having an eyesight challenge or hearing challenge can really make the experience of attempting to communicate overwhelming. And again, the guide for that is less is more, and we'll talk about that further. There may be some changes in behavior, and this might be something that no one is prepared for, although you deal with it every day. The 82-year-old woman who joyfully welcomed lots of people to her house might now be much more anxious when she's either in a different setting, when she doesn't recognize the furniture or people who are coming in. She might worry, and as a consequence, she might be withdrawn and quiet. And again, you can explain to people that we understand what's happening, and give them the guidance of, again, some gentle distance. I'll be with mother, and we'll be able to arrange, of course, your hug and your beautiful greeting. Your relative may have difficulty comprehending discussions. And so Katie and I always talk about starting small. So rather than my greeting my relative by saying, "Oh, Aunt Mary, I haven't seen you in 2 years. Since then, I've enrolled in graduate school. I'm studying for a PhD in social policy, and I'm living in Washington. It is so terrific." Well, she would have always adored knowing that and more, but that might be too much to manage now. So starting small might be, "Hi, Aunt Mary. I'm just so happy to see you. It's been a while." Because again, it's the connection, it's the smile, and it's the hug. Again, we talk about setting expectations, and Katie mentioned it. The visit may be short so as not to exhaust the relative. And Katie mentioned time of day, maybe outdoors if there is a young child to see. The one thing Katie and I laughed a little bit about was, you know how you don't dare leave before the desserts come out because there are how many pies or how many wonderful desserts? Well, if your relative will do best in a particular 2-hour window, and if after the 2-hour window, then we start again with desserts, that may be the best time to exit. So you may prepare your relatives and say, "No insult intended, we'll take a piece of pie home," but that again is going to be the best advice for you and for everyone else. Something else that is very serious, many of us in the last 2 years or in your family, there may be a very wonderful relative, important relative to your loved one who has died. There may be illness or divorce. And if the relative of someone close to your loved one, she may say, "Is Jack coming today?" And if your family has made an important decision not to inform her of the death or illness because it may be overwhelming to her, just prepare everyone to say, "You know, he wants you to know he sends his love and I'll see you next week," or something that you can work out with a relative. But you want to prepare your family because they may be surprised and they may not know what to say if your mother says, "Where's Jack?" But again, it's been a while, and that again, you want to enable everyone to feel safe and happy. So finally, our goal is to simplify rituals and activities and maintain as much joy as possible. Okay, Katie, the next slide, please.
I just have to say, Barbara, I like what you said about the visit may be short, but I used to think, many people know I've had personal experience as a caregiver, and I started to think about it's not the quantity of the minutes, it's the quality of the moments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that for some families, with our traditions, can be different. But again, this is a different time. You are now loving and caring for someone with a brain disease, with dementia. So life is different. And finally, some tips for successful communication. you may recommend to your company that greeting 1 or 2 guests at a time instead of larger groups is ideal. And one way to do that is if you position yourself perhaps, or one relative positions him or herself next to your loved one on a couch. And then as the company comes in, 1 or 2 people go up to greet her. Much more successful. We always suggest you refrain from asking questions. Instead of, Grandma, remember when we went to the Cape? Because chances are Grandma won't remember and then she may get anxious. You can simply say, oh, Grandma, when you took me to the beach, I had the most wonderful time. Again, eye contact, a smile, an expression of love. When you were with her, it was wonderful. That's what matters most. And also offering compliments and simple statements of pleasure. So rather than, that's a really great sweater. Did you make it, Grandma? Or, gee, where did you get that dress? I mean, those are natural. Katie and I know that is natural. But in this case, honoring your relative whose brain is not functioning in the way it has her whole life, when you greet her, it would be wonderful to say, Grandma, you look so beautiful today. I think that pink sweater suits you perfectly, and I love your hair. I'm just so happy to see you. And avoid known triggers. I'm sure you can name a lot, but 2 of them that Katie and I want to mention is many of our families have dogs, and dogs get excited also when company comes. They may run around the house and bark, or have cats that are beautiful and they jump on one's lap. For your relative, if that might be frightening or overstimulating, please note that and inform the home owner where you're going that that could be an issue, and can, for just the few hours, can the dog and cat please be in another room? And again, one of the things that we talk about all the time, whenever possible, refrain from saying no, arguing or correcting, because a person with dementia has a belief. It may not be correct, but he or she believes it. And if we attempt to argue, they don't have the capacity to hear what we're saying. And again, to ensure a connection, if my mother says to Katie, I went to Sweden yesterday, Katie. Katie may say, Mom, you've always loved to travel. You see, rather than, of course, saying, how could you have gone to Sweden? That's not possible, which of course we would do if my mother didn't have brain disease. So again, final message is, for the most successful contact at all times with a person with dementia, attempt to establish eye contact. So if your mother is sitting on a couch, perhaps ask relatives to, kneel and have eye contact. Speak slowly and calmly. And the best message is, please know that not only your presence, but your emotional expression is far more important than any words you will say. Your smile, your hug, your statement of I love you is far more important than all the details you might want to share. Okay, Katie, thank you.
I love that, Barbara. Before we move on from this slide, could you talk about, I really loved the idea that you presented about potentially creating a quiet table.
Yes.
So you talked about, visits 1 at a time. Could you talk a little about what that might look like in a holiday setting?
Exactly. So in fact, the 82-year-old woman who, when she got up from the table and went to hide in her bedroom because there was too much noise, the family did some great problem solving, which was there was a small den right adjacent to the big living room. And they set up a small table for 4 and organized it so that 1 grandchild, 1 adult would rotate and come in and have a quiet meal with her. She was by no means excluded. She was in fact included in a way that was compatible to what she could focus on. And it was all fine. She stayed out of the bedroom and everyone was able to enjoy her company. So setting up, even if also, you know, again, the joy of all those grandchildren running around, nothing is finer. But if that is hard for the older adult, perhaps setting up a playroom for the children so they can open up the rest of the presents there. But chiefly, a safe, quiet room is ideal. Thank you, Katie.
I loved that. I love that, Barbara. So when we're talking about, you know, those tips for successful communication, there are different ways that you could do it. When everyone arrives on the 7th night of Hanukkah or on New Year's Eve, when they're at the door and taking off their coats and unloading their presents, is that the best time to update them about your loved ones' recent changes or your expectations for the evening? Probably not. So we want to encourage you to communicate ahead of time with your family and friends and loved ones. And we have this beautiful sample letter here from the Duke Family Caregiver Support Program. And we are showing this just as an example. How can you help set expectations for your family? It doesn't have to be a letter, but just think about, how do your loved ones like to communicate? Maybe for some relatives, it's a paper letter in the mail. For others, it's an email, or maybe you're on a group text message with all of your adults, you know, your siblings. And you'll see that this letter gives you bullets to give you ideas. How do you say these things if you've never said it before? You could start with why you're writing to them. I'm writing to let you know how things are going. We want to celebrate with you, but here's some helpful info before you arrive. You may notice. I love how, you know, that's really bringing the attention back to the experience of the person who's coming to visit. What might they notice? The second bullet, I've enclosed a picture. You know, as Barbara's mentioned, some of us haven't seen each other for a couple of years. What if your loved one doesn't love to participate on FaceTime or Zoom? This may be the first time that people have seen your loved one in a while. So that recent picture might be helpful. Thinking about sharing that you're asking for understanding and you're asking for acceptance. And even, I love this last line. We would ask that you call when you're nearby so we can prepare for your arrival. With your help and support, we can create a holiday memory that we'll all treasure. That's what this is all about. It's about creating those new memories of joy. And I always say, just because dementia has come into your life does not mean that joy has to go out. It just might look a little bit different. And Barbara, boy, COVID, if there was one thing COVID was good at, it was helping us look at things differently, right? So here is a picture I've shared with many that I am an Alzheimer's caregiver for my dad who lives in memory care. And here is a picture from our celebration last year. You'll notice that we're outside, that there's significant social distancing happening. There's one grandchild far in the distance and one grandchild who's close, but we've really put that physical barrier and everyone's wearing masks. Papa has a blanket on his lap and we're doing an activity, but with new considerations. So I think the biggest message that we want to share when you're thinking about COVID is that you have the right to make the rules in your home. So if it's important to you to ask that everyone who comes into your home is vaccinated for COVID, you can say that. If it's important to you that everyone wears a mask who enters your home, you can say that. If you would only like to have outdoor visits, that is your right to say that. And so we hope that what you'll take away from the special considerations for COVID is that you are empowered to think about what is important for safety and also what causes you anxiety, right? If having unmasked friends who are unvaccinated in your home would cause you great anxiety, that's not going to be a holiday memory to treasure. So it's okay to put those guardrails on the holidays. Practice new protocols, consider outdoor visits, and if your loved one is in memory care, you may be very familiar with the COVID protocols and rules at your loved one's memory care, but maybe another relative wants to visit your loved one because it's this special time of year. And it may be important for you to share those rules with your loved one. So when you're doing that family update, that communication, you might want to share those and so that everyone's on the same page. Barbara, did I miss anything?
Not a thing. Your most important message is the caregiver is empowered. You make the rules. Absolutely. Thanks, Katie.
So what if your loved one lives in a memory care community? You may be feeling like, gee, this does not feel like the holidays of years before. But I look at this picture, the grandkids with their masks and their holiday project outside and their Santa hats. And boy, it was such a special memory for our family. We were playing Dad's favorite Michael Bolton Christmas music on our Bluetooth speaker. And it brought a lot of joy. And you know what? Nobody said afterwards, that wasn't fun because it was outside. They had a great time. So talk with the care team members about bringing in traditions you love. We did this visit outside with permission from the community. Some memory care communities have a private dining room or a space that they could reserve for your family. You may be allowed to bring in special foods, but it's always good to ask. It's respectful. If there's a favorite music that your loved one cared about, you can talk to the memory care about maybe including that. Many programs use music at different times of the day. Maybe you can suggest. So they've incorporated Michael Bolton's top hits into their regular rotation for Dad in his memory care. Decorations. So we talked with the memory care director about this little artificial tree before we gave it to Dad, because we pointed out that there were little hooks on the ornaments and there were lights, and the memory care director and I decided that this was safe for their space. But if they had said it wasn't, then we could have decorated together and taken it home with us for Dad. So it's really about having that communication with the team who's helping to care for your loved one. One thing I'd like to point out is many memory care facilities host events. They host luncheons, they have caroling nights, they have religious services. Find out if there is an event that you can join to participate with your loved one in the space that they're familiar with on their regular schedule. I know many memory cares celebrate New Year's at the stroke of noon instead of the stroke of midnight. And, the holidays are a feeling, not a day. And you can evoke those feelings by incorporating these meaningful traditions. And it doesn't matter if it happens on January 1st or December 25th. It's just all about the feelings. So Barbara, I think before we give this final message to caregivers, I just want to take a moment to step back and talk about those holiday feelings and also say to caregivers, if it is a love of yours to go to that midnight mass at your church, but your loved one with dementia, that wouldn't be appropriate, we want to give permission to caregivers that it's okay to ask for help for someone to care for your loved one. And maybe you go and enjoy that old tradition in a new way. It's okay to make the rules for yourself for this new reality you're living in. You're the expert in your loved one, and it's okay to make new traditions.
Absolutely. most importantly. And my only short comment before this favorite slide of ours is every day we know is filled with many emotions. And Katie and I, while we wish for you to have joyful reunions and occasions for the holidays, we know that with joy comes sadness, and allow yourself with others to also cry about those who have left, are not present, or the changes. That's all normal, isn't it, Katie? It's normal to feel everything, and bottling it up doesn't help you feel the good.
It doesn't. And, you know, I think that no more than at this time of year is it important. It's critically important to reach out for that support. You know, go to a support group, call up a friend and say, hey, you know, Christmas morning used to be such a joyous time and now it's so quiet. Do you think maybe you could come over for a cup of coffee before you go to your relative's house? Or could we take a walk together? I'd also love to give a plug that the Alzheimer's Association has a 24/7 hotline. We will put the 1-800 number here. So if on New Year's Eve at the stroke of midnight, you are feeling like, gosh, I wish I had someone to talk to because I've got a lot of emotions right now, pick up the phone. You don't have to have a specific question or even a goal in mind. You can just say, I want to talk to someone who understands, and they will be there. They're available.
Exactly.
Barbara, the holidays always bring up feelings of gratitude in my heart. And I just wanted to take the moment to say that I'm grateful for you. You have taught me so much. You are a tremendous gift to our community of caregivers and persons living with dementia. And I want to thank you for everything that you do, for touching so many lives, helping so many families, and especially for your time and expertise today.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Katie. You said perfectly what's in my heart, and what our viewers are seeing is the greatest joy, and that is our collaboration. We grow stronger, our programs are stronger. I feel joy working with you. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of our webinar series today. The MGH FTD unit is a clinical research program dedicated to providing the highest quality of care while working tirelessly towards a cure for these devastating conditions. Please know that all of our Community Forum Friday and educational webinars are recorded and posted on our MGH FTD unit YouTube channel. We are honored to have you as a part of our community. Thank you for your time and attention today. Until next time, be safe and be well.